Well, hello there. Let's make sure everything's cool over here on the other side in my super professional setup. Woo! Let's just make sure we're all good over here. Yep, all good, all good. Good morning. It is still morning. Sometimes I start a little bit past. I'm going to try to stand strategically on Instagram anyway. I'm going to try to stand strategically the whole time so that the top of my clock is like a, crown. I can't stand still. So, I won't be standing strategically like that the whole time. That's not the way that works. Not for me anyway. Hey, yep, there we go. Facebook. Ooh. The light on Instagram is so much. Oh, good morning, Cambridge, Massachusetts. I don't know what I'm saying. Good morning. The light on Instagram is better. I like the light better on Instagram than over on Facebook, but whatever. I don't know. Two different cameras. What do you know? The difference between my phone camera, Instagram, and my camera, not on my laptop, but like a fancy one. Anyway, it's enough chitter chatter. Shannon Coates. It's enough of that. Okay, here we go. Good morning. My name is Dr. Shannon Coates, and I am a singer, an educator, and a maximizer. And what I like to maximize are teaching skills around voice teaching voice, and coaching voice. And my pronouns are she, her, or they, them. Feel free to use whichever feels great for you. Obviously, I present pretty femme. So if you would like to, I kind of think that gender binary is kind of silly. But if you would like to practice using some they, them pronouns with someone who your brain is going, she, her, feel free to do that with me. Anywho, I am here on the traditional lands of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, the Mississauga, and the Wendake Neo-Wensio peoples. These are the traditional lands of those peoples, and I'm grateful to live and work on these lands. I am talking today. I come on pretty regularly, twice, maybe even 3 times a month, usually only twice a month. I come on pretty regularly anyway to do good morning, to do some live office hours where I kind of talk about stuff, have a little subject lined up, and you might see a post about that sometime in the week before. And the other things that I do are develop resources for voice teachers and coaches and classes. And so one of the classes or one of the resources, one of the courses that is ongoing, 8-month course that is happening right now is called the VoicePed Undegree. And last year, this is the second year doing the VoicePed Undegree, so we're in class of 24 now. Woo! Last year, the VoicePed Undegree had a slightly different structure because it was the inaugural year, and so I did things a little bit differently, and I learned from that and changed things up. And so last year we started, the first semester was the lectures, the modules were based around anatomy and physiology, so around the vocal instrument, understanding what's happening in the vocal instrument, getting all that stuff down. So great. And then and we kind of worked a little bit toward the teaching pedagogy side of things, the understanding of how we learn and how to teach and how that applies to teaching in a formal sense in the second semester. And I decided not to do that this year because I have a philosophical understanding, my belief, my understanding around pedagogy and teaching voice is that we actually want to develop diagnostic skills and teaching skills that are not predicated or contingent on knowing vocal function. I know, bold move, right? Bold statement. What we want to have, because if we did that, there'd be a lot of people. If we made teaching and teaching voice and coaching voice, if we made that like predicated on understanding vocal function, there'd be a lot of people not teaching right now, and a lot of wonderful teachers not teaching right now. So I'm going to talk next week a little bit about the pain points around why, in Live Office next week, I'm going to talk a little bit about the pain points around voice teachers and voice coaches who I talked to a lot of voice teachers, and I talked to a lot of beginning voice teachers, right? Voice teachers are at the beginning of their teaching journey. And I work with a lot of beginning voice teachers. And one of the big pain points is that, well, I don't know enough about vocal function, anatomy and physiology of the voice, how the voice works, and so I'm not going to be an effective voice teacher, right? So that's a big pain point. We're going to talk about that next week in Live Office Hours next week. But this week, we're going to talk about why I decided that the second module after the introduction module in the VoicePed underdegree, and so basically the first module, is on diagnostics, diagnostic skills. And we haven't done any anatomy and physiology in the VPED. We've done none. So we've done no like, here's how the voice works, here's resonance, here's registration, here's chest voice, head voice, here's like blah, blah, blah. We haven't done any of that yet. We're starting with diagnostics. And the reason I wanted to start with diagnostics and what I want to kind of talk about today is because I think that it is possible and preferable, perhaps, to develop diagnostic skills in the voice studio as voice teachers and coaches such that those diagnostic skills are only affirmed and validated and supported by acquisition of vocal function understanding and knowledge, rather than contingent on acquisition of understanding and knowledge of vocal function. Bold move, codes! Bold move! Bold statement. True story, though. So here's what happens right now. I'm just looking at my notes. I actually made notes, so don't usually make notes. I made notes today. You're welcome. And that's also the reason that I also was like, okay, but also I want this to be available, the beginning of this information. Obviously in the VoicePed underdegree, we get the information and then we work it through, and then like we're working with the singers that folks are working with, or choirs that they're working with, and we're applying it, and we're talking about all through, and we're talking through the whole framework around how to go through being a diagnostician or working through pedagogy, perhaps even without knowing vocal function, or much about vocal function, right? Or what we feel like we should know about vocal function. Yeah. So yes, so that class is coming up in December. So there's a wait, there isn't a wait list anymore. Registration is open. So that class is, it is December. That class is in 11 days. It's on the 12th of December. So not this Tuesday, but the following Tuesday. It's a 101. And it is also, there will be quite a lot of discussion, quite a lot of workshop-y kind of things. So, and also a better framework and all that. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. Here we go. What happens right now? What happens right now is we come from this framework of what is wrong with, so this is actual quotes from McKinney's book, The Diagnosis and Correction of Vocal Faults, and this is a VoicePed respected VoicePed text, it's falling out of favor a little bit nowadays. There are other texts out there for sure. However, the philosophical underpinning of this text is through all of the texts that are out today, all of them, even the ones that I recommend to people to use. It's this philosophical underpinning. In fact, McKinney is often quoted in some of our current VoicePed books, which are wonderful. And also the philosophical underpinning is this. I'm just going to read. 3 basic questions voice teachers must ask themselves. 1, what is wrong with the sound I am hearing? If you follow me at all, you know that I'm going to have some issues with that word, with that question. Secondly, what is causing it to sound this way? And third, what am I going to do about it? So that philosophical underpinning of my job as a voice teacher or a coach is to identify vocal inefficiencies, I'm quoting now, and provide corrective strategies to develop practice habits for long-term skill acquisition. That job description is really problematic. And that job description leads us to think that our job is to figure out what's wrong with the singer in front of us, the singer we're working with, to what is wrong with the sound I am hearing. So not with the singer, with the sound. What is wrong with the sound? What is causing it to sound that way? So what is the thing that is happening that is wrong and causing this outcome? And then what am I going to do about it? What am I going to prescribe, right? And so what this does for us when we have this philosophical underpinning, that our responsibility to, and our job as voice teachers, our responsibility to our clients, to our students, is to figure out what is wrong, to diagnose, and then to diagnose in the medical sense even, right? And then to prescribe, to know why it's happening, and then to prescribe something that is going to change that. What happens then is we get this unfathomable, deep, never-ending thirst for the right exercise, the right, the right understanding of exactly what's happening so that I can change or explain to them or figure out how to, change the thing that's happening. We get this never-ending thirst for this information because we're coming from this philosophical understanding of teaching and of what our job is, what our job description is. So part of the reason that I decided to have diagnostics as the first module, essentially the first module in the VoicePed underdegree, and that I wanted to do the Diagnostics 101 class, is because I would love for us as voice teachers, as a community, to start to reframe what our job description is so that diagnostic skills are developed within a framework of my job description is to support the singer in front of me as they learn how to communicate in the way they want to communicate with their instrument. That becomes our job description. Our job description is supporting learning and student agency. Our job description is not, let's figure out what's wrong with you, with your singing, with the sound, and let me tell you what to do to fix it. And when we change that, when we change where we're coming from, when we change our job description, we also then have to change, hopefully, what we start to change is how we perceive diagnosing in the voice studio and how we perceive how to diagnose. In the Diagnostics 101 class, I'm going to go through a whole framework of, possibilities. I'm not going to give you what to do, because that's also not my job. But I am going to give you a framework of possibilities and ways to rethink this understanding. Today, I'm going to just talk about one thing, one reframe. When you are working with singers this week, in the next little while, rather than, also let me just say that this is predicated, this reframe also is predicated, and this question and moving into this kind of diagnostic / student-led diagnostic skills where I'm supporting student-led learning and I'm supporting student agency, developing learning, all of that. When I'm doing that, this is all predicated on, I have already started to ask and to seed agency with the singers I'm working with by asking questions about, what do you want to do with your voice? What do you want to say? How do you want to say it, right? So that is already in place. This why. Why are you taking voice lessons? One of the questions I love to ask is, what will have changed if we've been working together for 3 months? What will you be able to do in 3 months that you can't do now? What will you be able to say in 3 months that you can't say now? I mean, like communicate, right? What message will you be able to communicate in 3 months that you can't communicate now? And how will you know? Oh, how will you know? So that's a whole other thing also. We're going to get way more deeply into that in Diagnostics 101 as well. And also into the framework around the language that is possible to use, some of the questions you can ask. So the question to think about, consider, the question that comes out of understanding that my job is not to figure out what is wrong with the singing voice and then to give you exercises to correct it. My job is to support your learning and your own discovery of the singing voice, of your singing voice, and how you can use it and what you want to say with it. This is the question. What do I want to hear more of in the singing voice? It can also be, what do I want to experience more of in the performance? What do I want more of from the performance? It can be, what do I want, and meaning, yes, what do I want more of in the performance? What do I want to hear more of in the sound? These questions, see how that is not based on, that's not based on what's wrong with the sound, right? This is, what do I want to hear more of? Because we've been so inundated with the idea that I need to correct what's wrong with the sound, so much of what you will come up with, and this is what happens in the VPUD constantly, is voice teachers say, well, they can't sing in head voice, or they have a really limited range. They don't have enough volume. They don't, the change between the registers is really, they can't get into head voice. What else? Oh, they're not connecting. The performance is really wooden. They're not connecting. They're not connecting with the words. It feels like they're not connected. They're not expressing anything on their face. Their face is so dead when they're singing. They are, I can't understand any of the words that they're saying. They're not articulating well. All of this, see how the first thing, when I say to you, when I ask you, what do you want to hear more of in the sound? And singers will do this too. When you start to ask the singer, what will you be able to do that you can't do right now? They will say to you, well, I can't sing in my head voice, or I can't seem to get through a phrase without losing my breath, or I can't seem to, they will reframe that question in terms of what they cannot do, right? In terms of their fault, in terms of the thing that needs to be corrected. And so you're going to be really just annoying about it and keep saying, okay, but what will you be able to do? What will you be able to do? And you're going to be annoying with yourself. What do I want to hear more of in the singing voice? So all of the questions that come up, okay, I want to hear more head voice. Okay, that's a start. What does hearing more head voice sound like? So I'm not asking you for Well, when they have done the things that they need to do, the exercise that they're going to do, then the larynx will tilt slightly, and we'll have the vocal folds meeting with exactly the right pressurization, because the airflow is doing what it needs to do to energize, and the shaping of the vocal, blah blah blah, right? That's not what I'm asking for. I'm asking for you to describe the sound. I'm asking for you to do this descriptive work in your brain. So you say, what does more head voice sound like? Well, it might sound more clear. It might sound more bell-like. It might sound lighter. It might sound more, see how the descriptive works there? So they can't get into their head voice. There's no siren available. I'm taking actual quotes from voice teachers I've worked with and who I am working with right now. So some of these things may sound familiar. Or they don't have volume available to them. Like they can't sing, I can't get them to have any body in the voice. Okay, so what will it sound like when they do the thing? What do you want to hear more of? Okay, I want to hear more body in the voice. I want to hear more presence in the sound. I want to hear more richness in the sound in this specific area. Also, I want to hear this with ease. Ooh, what does ease sound like? Okay. Once I start to frame those sound descriptors, once I start to have those sound descriptors and start to be able to articulate, not by using big fancy anatomical words. I don't want to, and no singerese. Get away from the singerese, singing teacherese, right? Where we say, well, I would like to hear more chiaroscuro. Great. What the frack is chiaroscuro sound like? That's so nice, right? It is like guerrilla self-learning. I love it. It's guerrilla self-learning. Yes. So I have agency, but also what does this do? I have agency as the teacher, right? I'm released from this, like, I'm locked into, I can't be useful in the voice studio because I don't know exactly what is happening in the voice. Or I can't pinpoint exactly what's wrong. And therefore I can't find the right exercise because I don't know exactly what's wrong, right? We get locked into this thing. So go through this other way. Go through, what am I hearing in the voice, but also like more head voice. But what does more head voice sound like? What's the actual difference in the sound? How would you describe the voice differently when they have more head voice? What does it sound like? Does it sound more like birds? Does it sound more like, I don't know, does it sound more like Disney princess when they have more head voice? Does it sound like a siren? I don't know. You describe it. You describe it. What does the voice sound like when the singer you're working with has, or what changes? How would you describe a performance where you feel like the singer is engaged with the music or is really communicating in the way that they would like to communicate? This gets tricky. How would you describe it? What are you going to say? Well, maybe their body was like forward and moving into the space rather than moving back out of the space. Maybe rather than like hiding back, maybe their body was doing something different. Maybe their eyes were engaged in a different way. Tell me what that engagement looks like. Does it look like, rather than them looking up and like looking like they're bored, does it look like they're looking directly at me the whole time? Look at my body now. I'm like engaged. What did I do? Oh, my one shoulder is forward and I'm leaning in and I'm looking at you directly. Describe it. I want a more engaged performance. Okay. What does that look like? What does that look like? Do the descriptive work. In the Diagnostics 101, I will also be handing out a worksheet that has a whole bunch of these kinds of prompts that you can use and that you can add to, and you can continue to have, like, add to them at will, but lots of these different kinds of prompts. folks will say, well, I don't want them to sing flat anymore. Okay, what does it sound like what do you want? Well, I want them to sing in tune. Okay, what does in tune singing sound like? Does it sound buoyant? Does it sound secure? What does secure singing sound like? Oh, this is hard to describe. Maybe secure singing sounds like blue, the color blue. I don't know. Maybe secure singing sounds like a taste. I don't know. Maybe secure singing is a shape to you. Maybe secure singing looks like a bullseye. Maybe in tune singing looks like a bullseye to you. Right in the middle of it. Yes, yes. My struggle is staying actively silent, exactly, and allowing the space for the singers to consider these questions, often for the first time ever. Yes, absolutely. That is also a struggle. Especially for teachers, I think, who are just like, I just want to make sure you get all the juicy information, right? That is a struggle. 100% a struggle to like just allow for the space for singers to consider these questions. There are there are some folks out there, some wonderful teachers and people who work with teachers out there who talk about, okay, let me go one step further with the question before I do that. So once you are starting to describe, once you are starting to get these descriptions in your mind, you also want to have the space for singers to start to also use their own descriptives, right? And at the same time, what is very useful about you describing these sounds and about you sort of figuring out what do I want, is that then I can start to ask for that thing rather than assigning an exercise to get the thing, right? So I can start to ask for that thing, or I can start to do what Heidi Moss calls upstream directives. So I want more head voice in the sound, which sounds to me kind of like bells, or maybe like Julia Child, or maybe it sounds like sirens. Ooh, siren, that could be a good exercise, a good way to access, right? We already know that sirens are great exercises for accessing head voice. We already know this. We know this, like, we all know this. So now what am I going to do? I'm going to, rather than saying, okay, we really got to get more head voice in the sound, and I want to hear more freedom, I want you to be able to access the upper range a little bit better, why don't you try moving from the bottom of your range to the top of your range in a siren kind of sound, blah, 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 blah. Then we say, rather than like pulling out the exercise book and describing the exercise and what's going to happen in the vocal function, we don't have to do any of that. We say, what happens if I do something like this? Did that get me more head voice? Yes, it did. In what I wanted, did that sound like a siren? Did it sound like where I wanted the sweet sound? Whatever it was that I wanted. It did. Okay. Let's do that together a couple of times. See how I didn't have to go to a book and figure out what was wrong, and so then I had to then I got to choose the right exercise to correct what was wrong. I started to do the thing that I wanted to hear more of. I just asked for the thing I wanted to hear more of. And then what happens when you start to understand vocal function better is you go, oh, that's why I was using those exercises, because I already understood intuitively, or like by using my body and my understanding of singing within my own body, I already understood that that siren exercise was a thing that would help to coordinate for the pressurization requirements for head voice, blah, blah, whatever. Yeah? So similar thing, say I want more engagement in a performance, and I'm like, okay, actually what I want in this performance is I want them to be a little bit more forward in the body and maybe to the side a little bit. And I actually want their knees to be bent a little bit. What is the emotional or situational prompt that I can give that will allow their body to do that because they've already done it in some other situation? Upstream directive. I might say, what happens when you, I don't know, are about to jump? You go, I'm about to jump over a stream. I go, huh. What happens if you pretend you're about to jump over a stream for this second verse? Okay, I'm on the mic and I'm about to jump over a stream. Let's try it. Let's see what happens. I didn't have to say anything about, okay, now let's figure out if we can get you more grounded and like, what does it really feel like? What do these words really feel like to you? I mean, maybe that is also a way in for sure. I'm not saying that isn't a way in, but what do these words really feel like? And also, if we can make sure that you're better grounded, then we can have better support, and then we can get better pressurization at the vocal fold level, and we can get you really engaged, and then we can hear blah, 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 blah. When you figure out, when you learn more vocal function and you're like, oh, that's what's happening in the body. Okay. That just supports and validates all the work you've already done. Right? Because you're like, oh yeah, I was already doing this work because I was already asking for them to like feel like they're about to jump over a stream, jump over something. I don't know, whatever it was. They were already getting into that position anyway. Or maybe you were like, what happens if you do this? Oh, what does that feel like in your body? Oh, it feels like you're like, I don't know, an orangutan. You're about to like, great, be an orangutan now. When you learn vocal function, when you get deeper into vocal function, when you get deeper into understanding acoustics maybe, when you get deeper into understanding how breath works, when you get deeper into somatic work, blah, 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 when you get deeper into all of those other parts of singing and understanding anatomy and physiology, those things should be validating experiences. They should not feel guilt and shame. They should not feel shameful. They should not feel like, ah, shoot, I've been doing it wrong this whole time. They should be validating experiences. And if you are working from a framework of what do I want to hear more of in the voice, rather than what is wrong with this voice, with this sound, how do I correct it for them, it will be validating. If you're working from a framework of what is wrong with this sound, and also what is causing this sound to be wrong, and also what exercise should I assign so that they are now doing it right. When you learn more about vocal function, you'll feel shame. Because you'll be like, yeah, but I thought I was doing it right the whole time. And now I just figured out that I was doing it wrong this whole time. I mean, that also depends on the teacher, to be perfectly honest. Also depends on who you're getting your vocal function information from. It does also depend on that. But what would it feel like to learn about vocal function? Yes, Vic, exactly. Vic said something about, up until now I didn't understand why my teacher constantly asks me if I like the way that I'm singing. Exactly. Yes. Because it's not just about, yes. So let me put, because these things are complex, and I don't want to be reductive about just like, well, this is the one thing that you need to do. This is part of a big reframe. This is part of this understanding is a part of a big reframe. This question is part of a large reframe. And it is not, it's not a one-stop solution, right? Like there's no solution here. This is all exploratory. And so let me put a couple of caveats in there. As I was saying earlier, there are some wonderful voice teachers out there, and folks who work with voice teachers as well, who talk about Jeremy Ryan Mossman, for example. Wonderful somatic-based, neurology-based educator. From what I can tell on the socials anyway. Hey, Jeremy. We've never worked together. I've never attended any of his stuff, but I love his stuff on the socials. So, and he did a live or a reel or something a little while ago about coming into the lesson with a blank slate, and then sort of allowing the sort of just allowing things to kind of settle and then beginning to speak, which I think is so beautiful and wonderful. And also, if you are at the beginning of your teaching career, if you are at the beginning of the kind of understanding or this dismantling, if you will, of like, master apprentice approach, if you are at the beginning of understanding, oh wait, I've been thinking about what's wrong with the sound my whole life as a teacher, if you're at the beginning of dismantling that in your teaching, coming from a blank, like coming from this open place may not be useful for you. Just because, oh yeah, Lindsay, yes. So it may not be as useful for you because you're just at the beginning of this journey of awareness, and you're at the beginning of this journey of like understanding what your role is in the teaching process. So I offer this question, this what do I want to hear more of in the voice? What do I want to hear more of in the sound? What do I want to experience more of in the performance? I offer this question to ask ourselves as voice teachers as a way to cleanse that palette of what is wrong with the voice, what is wrong with the performance, what don't I like about the performance, what do we have to change, right? As this sort of this palette cleanser, this brain cleanser that then can allow you to get into this more sort of blank slate kind of place where you can be this place of, this kind of openness to what's happening between you and the singer you're working with, right? And what the singer is doing and what the singer is bringing. So let me just offer that as a sort of intermediary step for folks who perhaps haven't been teaching for very long, for folks who are just at that beginning of this journey of like, it's kind of at the beginning of a healing journey, if you will, or a deconstruction journey, if you will, like to pull in some other areas of life. Lindsay says, what do you like about how you sang that? Absolutely. Can also is a wonderful way to reframe, do you like how you sang that? Yes, exactly. I love that. I also love, what do you like about how you sang that? And also, the singers we work with will inevitably be like, well, I didn't like, and then you're like, okay, but what did you like? And also, it's a little bit of deconstruction, I know. And also, that also then gives us this like opportunity to go toward find over fix, which is something that Cindy Dewey talks about, which I absolutely love and stole from her, which is the like, how do I working toward this reframing of I'm looking for the things that are wrong in my singing as a student, I'm looking for the things that are wrong that I want to fix, versus I'm looking for the things that went right and I'm going to go toward those. Yes. So what do you like about how you sang that? And then it was lighter. It felt more blah, blah, blah. Ooh, how do you know? That's my next favorite question, which comes from somatic experiencing work. But and then the other comment, undeniable voice, says this is also validating as well as kind and gentle to both the coach and the singer. Absolutely. Yes, it's validating. It is kind. Well, there's an assumption. The philosophical underpinning, again, is that my job as a voice teacher is not to figure out what's wrong with you, is not to diagnose you, but to allow for learning, to provide this open space for learning and developing agency and understanding how your voice works and how you want to show up in the world, how you want your voice to show up in the world, what you want your voice to sound like, right? So creating this kind of space, that changes everything. It also changes, oh, hi Dana, I didn't realize that was you. I love it. Undeniable voice is like, oh, it's a good one. I love it. Love it. And it also provides for this support, as you were saying, Dana, the support for for the singers we're working with, where the singers are also able to, like, we're modeling for them that how they feel about their voice matters, what they hear in their voice matters, and also we're starting to give them the tools, the attentional tools. Robert Sussuma is another one who talks about a lot of sort of somatic experiencing within the body and trusting the body and understanding the body, and not making exercises as voice teachers, right? Like, and just simply building on what you find happening in the singer you're working with. So that we model agency, we start to model that your voice matters, and also that here are some of the options and tools that you can use to figure out what you want to do more of, and to actually like have this assessment process, this ongoing assessment process in the most positive way possible. Not in a did you do it right or wrong way, but in an assessment way, like, am I on the trajectory I want to be on to be able to say the things I want to say in the ways I want to say it? Yes, yes. So again, the question, like I said, the question, what do I want to hear more of in the voice? What do you want to hear more of in the voice, the performance, etc.? That is sort of like an intermediary step. It's like sort of a way to cleanse the palate, especially if our voice teacher palate, especially in the diagnostic process, especially if our first step, if our first inclination is to try to figure out what's wrong with the sound. I will put one big caveat right here at the end. One big caveat. When you are working with singers who are working music theater styles, yes, oh, I love that too. Guiding to an intention rather than a judgment, love that. When you are working with singers in specific styles, you need to have the tonal outcome possibilities of those styles in your ear. That's the one caveat I have for this kind of work. It is not useful to say, what do I want to hear more of in the voice, if you are a Western classically trained singer. It may not be useful. I won't do an absolute there. If you are a Western classically trained singer and you are working with someone who is learning to belt, unless you've done a lot of listening, you've done maybe some belt work yourself in your own voice, you don't have to understand the mechanics of belt. You don't have to understand them. You do have to know what the sound is, though. You might need to understand the mechanics of belt because if you've been working Western classical singing for a long time, you might need that deconstructed in a very explicit way for you. So you might need to, yes. But it's not a requirement. The requirement is that you need to have the sounds in your ear. You need to have, and if you're working with children who are belting, fantastic. You need to be listening to children who belt or who sing music theater. You need to have those sounds in your ear. Part of the reason I do a children's voice thing, and part of the reason I do an expanding voice workshop, and part of the reason I do a contemporary voice workshop is not because I absolutely think that people need to understand the mechanics necessarily. It's because I am demystifying what it actually sounds like. So I'm doing some work to say, guess what? These are valid sounds and you should listen to them more. And also, this is what a child voice singing, appropriate singing music theater repertoire that is written for the child voice sounds like singing it. That's what it sounds like. This is the thing. Yes! And we've all heard some janky Western classical version of every other sound exactly. Where what I want to hear more of in the sound is way too colored by like, I need to hear more chiaroscuro in that belt. No, you don't. You do not. I need more spinto. Which actually maybe you do. I don't know. Maybe it depends on how you describe spinto, of course. I don't know. All in your perception. But that is my caveat, is that those sounds need to be in your ear. And that's also my releasing, if you need it, and validating word to folks who, I mean, you all know that I get so annoyed when our academic institutions hire, in Western classical singing especially, hire people to teach in their faculties who have had a big performance career and who have never learned how to teach, right? I get annoyed. That is annoying to me because do they know how to teach? Maybe they do. I don't know. But you didn't bother to find out whether they know how to teach. You just hired them because they have a big performance career, and that is annoying to me. Anywho, those folks though, here's my validation and qualification here. Those folks know what they want to hear. They know what they want to hear. And they can be very effective teachers while they figure out how to teach, if they have the understanding that I'm going toward what I want to hear in the voice rather than what I need to correct. Are they going to do that? Not always, which is why we end up with sort of sometimes not great teaching. Often because they haven't learned how to teach yet, but that's the beginning of the journey. Okay. Yes. So if you are a generalist, so if you are a sort of pretty typical independent voice teacher, generalist, where you are teaching all ages and stages of development, and you are teaching lots of different genres, you are likely going to need to do a lot more listening. If you want to, but I'm just saying that's something you might want to do more of, a lot of listening. When I was working in my typical independent voice studio with my sort of typical singers who come to a typical independent voice studio in a, my studio was right downstairs, right underneath me, in the room right under where I'm standing right now. When singers came into the studio with new rep that I didn't know, or from shows that I didn't know, which happened all the time, because there's lots, and I do not know it all, and I see lots of stuff, but I do not see it all. The first thing that we would do together is listen to it. We'd listen to someone's at my front door. It's probably someone trying to sell something, right? Probably. We would listen to it. So, and we would listen to it. We'd listen to a Broadway recording. We'd listen to live recordings. Whatever, YouTube is like chef's kiss, right? So we'd listen to that thing. And then we would work to describe the sound together. What are you hearing? Oh, it sounds forward. Okay, cool. Any parts of that sound less forward? Okay. Whatever words they use to describe, it doesn't matter. I'll throw out options, whatever. I'll throw stuff out there. But yes, thank you. Thank you, Dana. Right? So we do the listening together because I don't really even know what I'm listening for yet. I probably had a good idea because, I do listen to a lot, but I didn't know yet. I want to know what the actual tonal outcome goals are, and I want to know what the possibilities are. I need to have those in my ear. That's what I want in my ear. And then when I'm working with that singer, I'm not working on what do we need to change, what don't you like about the sound. We're working on, remember that forwardness? What did that make you think of? What kind of work would you like to do in order to have more forwardness? Let's sing a scale and you make it as forward as you like. And then let's describe it. You tell me which note was the most forward. Yes, and also what does your ideal performance of this sound like? Absolutely, and describe it. Yeah. Yeah. And also like describe it in terms of whatever terms are the most useful. Sometimes what happens too when we have lots of vocal function understanding is we describe sounds in terms of, well, I need more, divergent vocal tract shaping in there. Okay, do you? Great. That's fine. Maybe you do. What is the tonal outcome? What will change in the sound? Tell me what sound you want. Give me the sound descriptor. When I understand vocal tract shaping, yes, I may then say, let's get more divergent vocal tract shaping in there. Sure, but really I'm going to be like, how would Ethel Merman sound singing this? Great. Let's get 70% Ethel Merman in there now and see how that sounds. Right? Okay. That's enough of that for today. It's been nearly an hour, so you're welcome for that. Have a great weekend. See if you can start to sort of see what a reframe of your initial reaction to singing in the voice studio feels like. If you start to ask the question, what do I want to hear more of in the sound? And or asking the singers you're working with, what do you want to hear more of in the sound? And holding our feet to the fire a little bit, right? Being a little bit, being a little bit annoying with yourself and with the singers you're working with to ensure that we are describing what we want to hear in the sound, not what is going wrong. Have a great weekend. See ya. Registration is open right now for registration. Nope, not registration. What's it called? Diagnostics 101. Registration is open now for that. Yes. You're so welcome, Sarah. See ya. I can't get the button that's behind the thing. There we go. That was weird. And over here on Facebook, let's do that and that. Bye.